in 2009, a group of artists, photographers, writers, filmmakers from Nigeria came together and founded a project called Invisible Borders Trans-African Project. And the idea behind this project is simply for us to discover ourselves, to discover what Africa really means to us. This is the end of the first decade of the 21st century. We're opening up to the world. But we realize that actually the way Africa is told from the external does not relate to our reality in any way. But of course, to really understand why we looked at the question of borders is to understand what the countries in Africa is. It is a colonial project. All the countries, the 54 countries, those lines are simply a colonial contraption. It's like a trap. So the idea of nationhood, when it relates to Africa, it already comes with its own limitations. And so for you to really begin to think about emancipation truly, you have to look at the borders. Now, what are these borders really? What is it limiting? What it limits is movement. It's important to understand this because the narrative of Africa, the prevalent narrative of Africa, is one that is connected to slavery, colonialism, and of course, many speakers have referenced that today here. But there's another one that precedes that, which is that Africa has always been and continues to be a story of journeys. Many people know that we say that the human race started from Africa and then permeated the world. That is very, very, very true. So for us, we started thinking in the 21st century, how do we return to that conversation? And so, as creative thinkers, armed with the power of media, that is photography, writing, film, we decided to tackle this. But again, we said to ourselves that we are going to go into it with the agency we have as Africans. We are not going to go with a mandate, a theme, because that's what Africa is about, headlines upon headlines. Hunger, starvation, all whatnot. But for us, we want to just go in, experience our own continent, and make encounters, and then rely on our ability to process all of that ourselves. So our approach has been basically to look at Africa with an open heart, to enjoy it, not going there to repair something, and eventually to look at all the poetry that the road could offer us. And that has largely informed the way we have worked in the continent. Our photographs basically look at themes of conviviality, organic way of organizing space, and spontaneity, which are the things that are very much African in a sense. But also beauty. The continent is very beautiful, beautiful. Like when we travel, we're like, oh my goodness, And then there is this question of communality. In a place like South Africa, we talk about Ubuntu, togetherness. But this is something that permeates the entire continent. It pervades everywhere. And so our work have addressed that over the last 15 years. And since the inception of the project, there have been about 11 editions of the road trip. So many artists, about 70 artists from the African continent diaspora, coming from about 20 different countries in the continent, have been enlisted in this project. And so it's also been a platform that has allowed young artists to embark on this journey of freeing and emancipating their imagination, which is very key when it comes to, understanding how Africa enters the world narrative or the global narrative in our time. And so these are, and then it's a very ambitious project. For instance, in 2014, we made a road trip from Lagos in Nigeria to Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina, spending 4.5 months on the road. And these are the crew who made that trip. And that's me, running across the border between Austria and Slovenia in 2014. Also, we have made road trips in Asia. in Bangladesh. Now, one thing that is at the core of this project is that we employ our body as subjects of useful agitation, because we've understood that the first site for the projection of that limitation is on the body. So, as creative thinkers, we don't just make works or create artistic content. We make works that are generated from the visceral experience of being on the road, and that has largely informed the work that we make. So we make some performative works, like this one that you see here, and it's also in collaboration with the participants on the road trip. So we come together, we create on the road, and this has also informed not just only the content, but the aesthetics of the project. And we eventually go on to have exhibitions in big places like the Venice Biennale and all the rest of them. But also, we know that we are working with a colonial tool, which is the camera. So we're also asking ourselves our position in all of that. Because if we take that for granted, we risk reproducing the same gaze. So again, we try as much as possible we carry a projector on the road. And then we engage in activities that allow us to get the everyday person that we encounter to be part of the conversation. We also use these projectors for looking at our work on the go. Like every 2-3 days, we do portfolio reviews, we do masterclass for ourselves. We're asking ourselves, and we're learning why the landscape is changing. Now, in one of those road trips, we came across a border. And there was a border between Nigeria and Cameroon. And this is the Trans-African Highway. The Trans-African, in the name of the project, is a reference to the Trans-African highways that was built by the colonial masters. And of course, Portugal built one of those as well across Mozambique and the rest of them. There are 8 of those highways in Africa. But now that we have inherited those highways, what do we make of them? How can we reimagine them so that they can really connect the continent and its people? And so this too is at the heart of the project. So when we came to this road, we had 2 options. Either we go back to Nigeria and cancel the road trip for that year, or we try somehow to cross. And so we asked the locals around, what we should do. And they said, well, we have, either it's difficult, but it's not impossible. You have to choose. And so we chose the not impossible. To cut a long story short, we spent 4 days and 4 nights trying to get out of this mud, just 1 kilometer of a stretch to get out of the mud. We walked day and night, all of us, but we were not alone. We had all the help of the locals who encouraged us to take the road, by the way. And but it eventually came out, and this was us after the 4 days. The crew that eventually made it. It was a celebration. But what's interesting is this. This became very representative of some of the experiences we've had about borders and the nature and condition of borders. It's a place of paradox, of contradictions, of inconsistencies, but it's also a site of encounter. And this is very important. Throughout our time on this project, it's been that mix of either, fraught with tension, but at the same time, if you really open yourself to it, something happens. You understand yourself much better. At this place, at this point, it didn't matter if we were photographers, writers, filmmakers, we were something else. But we discovered something else about ourselves, our resilience, and all of that. Now, throughout the course of this project, we've seen different formations of borders. And this one, for instance, here is a border between Bangladesh and India. So every weekend, the indigenes of India and Bangladesh, they come together here and with their loved ones for recreation. So it is also to underscore that borders can actually be malleable and porous, but also a space where we can really encourage encounters. Now, looking forward, but also in hindsight, I make a point to say that the 21st century is an era of a volatile negotiation between the past and the present. But the past is a colonial past. So the present is a postcolonial one. You and I are engulfed in that postcolonial condition. It is not modernity, it is a postcolonial condition. So when I speak about the postcolonial, I'm not speaking about those who have been colonized. It is all of us. It's a global condition. And at the heart of that, what is being negotiated? It is difference. Now, the difference I speak of is not separation, nor is it reducible to sameness. It is unity that is organic, that is always in motion. To really harness the wealth of this difference, we must allow our movement into the structural idea of the self, that one we call identity, that we carry around. But to do this, we have to be courageous. Throw ourselves into that space in between the self and the other self. That space of paradox, that space of thistles of inconsistencies, but it's also a space of possibilities. It is a space where hope is no longer abstract. It is a lived and visceral reality. Now, many speakers today have talked about, say, slavery, the dangers of surveillance, and the things happening in Congo and the Middle East. But all of that is on top of a world that is constructed by the doctrine of enclosure and the reinforcement of the illusion of separation. That is what is happening. We must understand that what is at stake here is understanding how, as we move not only intensively but extensively into each other in the 21st century, how do we deal with difference? How do we accommodate difference? How do we understand and respect it? That is what is at stake here. And this is really what I would like to put out there for all of us to think about, because that's actually what is being negotiated in what I have said, that, our time is an era of a volatile negotiation between the past and the present. And we stand at that point where we really have to come up with new ways to think and allow ourselves to be comfortable and to accept difference, absolutely, viscerally. Thank you.